I'm really, really honored to have Dr. Areeba with me. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, Amir. I was actually building up my startup as well, which was Taqwa Invest. And I got this registered in DIFC. Being a female and entering the Islamic finance industry, it's not that easy.
Nice.
I think the most important thing when you start a company is you need to have a co founder who has the same vision, who can understand
Mm,
you. I think that argument actually sounds intuitive at first because people associate riba with exploitation. There are regulators sitting over there who make sure that things are done the way it's been written in the rule book.
I think the Islamic mortgages, which is also like risk sharing compared to conventional mortgages, which are not risk sharing. So there is a lot of burden on the person who is getting the mortgage.
The Middle East market is slowly moving towards promoting Islamic finance on a larger scale. We have like such good muftis out there who are part of the
Mm,
various Sharia boards who are
mm.
understanding, who don't make it look like a burden on them or on us.
What is it for the future now, Dr. Areeba? What do you plan to do? Hello and welcome to the Ethical Investor Podcast. My name is Amir, and today I'm very honored to be joined by Dr. Areeba for another episode on ethical investments. In case you don't know, Dr. Areeba is a PhD holder in finance, where her research focuses on Islamic versus traditional or conventional equity indices. She's also a founder of Taqwa Invest, which was recently acquired by Standard Chartered. And in 2021, she was also awarded with Standard Chartered's Women in Tech Award and recognized as top 100 most influential women in Islamic finance and Islamic business. So I'm really, really honored to have Dr. Ariba with me. Thank you so much, Dr. Ariba. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, Amir, for the lovely introduction and really looking forward how I can contribute to this podcast and how I can help people decide on Islamic or Sharia compliant decisions when it comes to finances because there are few gaps which people don't understand and obviously it's a very important area which everybody should understand and happy to do that.
Great. Thank you so much once again. So we will touch upon a couple of topics today. Number one is obviously understanding a little bit about ethical finance and Sharia compliant finance. How do they overlap? And then secondly, the major part of this conversation is going to be the Middle East market in terms of Sharia compliant finance and ethical finance. So first of all, Dr. Ariba, congratulations for your recent acquisition. So I'm sure it must have been a very inspirational or very transforming journey for you in this field. So tell us a little bit more about your journey in finance, in ethical finance or Islamic finance specifically.
So it's been an interesting journey, honestly, because I did my MBA in conventional finance and then I started working with a conventional bank in India. And you will be surprised to know that I worked there for like 2.5 weeks only when I realized that, okay, I'm not doing something which is Sharia compliant. So I was working with a very big bank in India and it was a campus placement. So Alhamdulillah, I got it just after my MBA. So when I was working over there, there was a client which came in because, we have these targets of selling products in banks. And one of the target was to sell insurance. And this client came into me and he came in for opening that zero balance account. So there was a zero balance account, which was very common before the demonetization happened. And the person came in and he was asking me about this account. And I was actually trying to sell him other products as well because that was part of my job. And he said to me that, this is not halal, by the way. At that time, I got a shock because obviously I knew about riba, I knew about insurance, life insurance is not halal and all of that, but I didn't know the basic concepts behind it. I didn't know why we say this. The why is what most of the people don't know. They know, okay, this is not halal, but why do we say that? So I instantly called up my professor in my university and I asked him that I want to do a certificate course in Islamic finance because I want to learn about Islamic finance. And I don't think where I'm working is the right place where I should work. So he said to me, you will be surprised, Ariba, that this is the first time a central government university is launching a PhD in Islamic finance. Why don't you apply for that? Because you're already an MBA. No need to go for a certificate course. Go deep into it. learn what Islamic finance is. He said, you
Mm,
have 3 to 4 months. Why don't you start preparing for the PhD exam? I resigned from that job the very same week and I started preparing for my PhD. And on the side, obviously, I was continuing my job at one of the institutes where I was teaching. I was a lecturer over there and I got into the PhD program, and Alhamdulillah, in 2015 itself. Then I also started teaching. I got a lecturership offer from my own university, wherein I was
mm,
asked to teach Islamic economics. So I learned not just investments, I didn't learn just equities, I also taught Islamic economics, which was a new field for me because obviously you've been studying conventional since the time you entered the college or the graduations phase. Like whole of my BA in economics, I was studying conventional. There was no mention of Islamic over there. You've
mm,
learned about interest, you have learned about
yeah,
insurances, you have learned about every single thing which is
yeah.
conventional. And now suddenly you have to study about Islamic. So I had to study from A. Like I was studying like the basics, and obviously my supervisor has helped me a lot in this. And Alhamdulillah, I
Mm,
completed my PhD within 2.5 years. I was in fact that was in fact the shortest duration somebody could have done in PhD. And I developed few of the indices for Dow Jones, FTSE, and MSCI. It
mm,
was a difficult phase, very difficult phase, I will say, because at that time, Islamic finance was not that known in the market.
mm,
And obviously, for getting data on stocks and equities, you need a
yeah,
Bloomberg terminal. And
yeah,
Bloomberg terminal was not easily accessible. Not
mm,
every university pays like
yeah.
in crores to get that
It's
access. So
very expensive.
I used to travel to different institutes around different state to just
Mm,
get the data to complete my PhD. And then I came to the
mm,
UAE just after completing it. I was
yeah,
teaching for 3 years in the same university as a
mm,
lecturer. And when I came here, it was a different world. It was a completely
mm,
different world.
yeah,
And it was the fancy world, actually. And I had a dream and a vision to start my own entity over here. And
yeah.
Alhamdulillah, Allah made me capable to launch my own entity. And then I
So that
started
is
working with,
that is Taqwa Invest.
yes, correct.
Do let us know
Sure.
more about Taqwa Invest as well.
Definitely, definitely. So I started my career in Islamic finance by joining Dinar Standard, which is a very famous Islamic
Mm,
research portal or academy. And I started working with them. And then I got a job in Zoya Finance, which is a
mm,
Sharia screening company from the US. Then I
mm,
joined Ethis as well. Ethis is an equity crowdfunding platform from Malaysia. After that, I
mm,
got promoted to head of business development with a Sharia advisory firm. On the
mm,
side, I was actually building up my startup as well, which was Taqwa Invest. And I got this registered in DIFC. I had a co founder with me who helped me throughout this journey because obviously you alone cannot do it. Being a
mm.
female and entering the Islamic finance industry, it's not that
I
easy. So
see.
I had a co founder with me. She happens
Mm,
to be my college, not college, I will say school friend, and
mm,
we have the same vision to promote Islamic finance. I think the most important thing when you start a company is you need to have a co-founder who has the same vision, who can understand
mm,
you. Because I've been seeing after working for so many years in fintech
mm.
industry, a
Yeah,
co-founder needs to be understanding. They should understand you why you do a certain thing. They should
yeah,
understand the vision behind the company, because if they don't
mm,
understand the vision, then you are doing something else and the other person is
yeah,
doing something else, and then
yeah.
the company will fail for sure. So we had the same vision and we worked hard on it, and we got registered in the DIFC, the fancy financial world, and
Mm.
we got regulated over here as well, alhamdulillah, in 2023. And we
Mashallah.
went live. We launched. We launched with a very small team. We had a very, very small team, and which
Mm.
was distributed amongst different countries. I had my tech team sitting in Pakistan, my CTO sitting in Australia. I was here. My co-founder was in India. So we
Mashallah.
started this entity. Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Specifically, what specifically were you aiming to do with Taqwa Invest?
So it was a Sharia compliant robo advisory. I'll tell you the history behind it because that's the
Okay.
most interesting part. I
Hmm.
actually got interviewed at Wahid. in 2019, just after my PhD.
Okay.
I was actually trying to understand what they are doing, and because they were not that known on this side of the world, West Asia and
Mm.
Southeast
Yeah.
Asia. So I thought that why don't we bring something with a similar idea, which
Mm.
can be affordable, which even Indians, like if they convert their currency, they can start investing with us. So we came
Yeah.
up with this idea. We had the minimum investment amount and we started promoting it, not just because when we started, it was 2020, peak time of COVID. Everybody
Yeah.
was sitting at home and
Yeah.
everybody was more interested in learning via platforms which are online. So we
Mm.
started with webinars. We started educating people first rather than launching the product
Mm.
because we did understand that there is a major gap when it comes to Islamic finance. And this
Mm.
gap can only be solved by the people who are experts. Because
Mm.
if I would have gone into academics after completing my PhD, trust me, I wouldn't have tried to make this change. So we chose to go for Taqwa Invest because, first of all, when it comes to Islamic finance, we don't see that many females working on this area.
Mm.
We thought this is a good opportunity for us to change this perspective
Mm.
because at that time, if you remember, I don't know whether you know about this platform called as Clubhouse. It was launched during the COVID times. So this was basically kind of a podcast wherein all the fintech founders used to come in, they used to talk about their journeys, they used to talk about
Mm.
how they are building their fintechs. So when
Mm.
we got introduced, we were the only woman out there, and obviously
I
women
see.
coming from South Asia, which was
Yeah.
a different thing, and women having doctorate degrees because my co-founder also has a doctorate, where she has a doctorate in general management. So we are coming with an experience and with the highest qualification. And we realized that it's a male-driven industry, it needs
Yeah.
women also in
Yeah.
it. And then obviously we started working on this mission that we need to start promoting Islamic finance. We need to start promoting how Islamic investments are much better than the conventional investments, especially during the
Mm.
crisis period, non-crisis period as well, because obviously my research was on the crisis period, so I could easily back it off with a solid research wherein it's
Mm.
been proven that Islamic investments are much, much better. So this is the reason why we started Taqwa, and our vision and mission was to solve this major gap, which is still there,
Mm.
which
Yeah.
is slowly getting filled up, but it is
Mm.
there till now. Yeah. But Alhamdulillah, we went ahead, launched in 2024, had
Mm.
traction, and then suddenly I started getting acquisition offers from various
Mm. Wow.
entities. Obviously, being a fintech founder and a female founder was
Yeah.
not easy. We
Mm.
had funding issues,
Mm.
and this was one of the reasons why I was considering acquisition because
Mm.
it's important. It's to preserve your own vision, it's to preserve
Mm.
the idea which you had because you need a solid backing. You can't be running an entity with just 4 or 5 people. You need a solid backing behind
Yeah.
you of institutes
Yes.
who can help you
Yeah.
grow, who can mentor you, because we didn't know this international industry, international financial industry, and which
Mm.
was very fast paced. So we needed a solid backing for this, and we went ahead for the acquisition. And before that, I have won the Standard Chartered Women in Tech Award in
Mm.
2021 itself when we started the entity. Then me and my co-founder were part of the top 100 most influential women in Islamic finance for 4 consecutive years. And we were featured in Forbes also. We were part
Mm.
of She Wins Arabia program, which was started by International Finance Corporation or the World
Mm.
Bank. And
I
we were,
see.
in fact, the top 5 finalists in that program.
Mm.
So we did whatever we could do, definitely. Obviously,
Okay. Or acquisition was the ultimate success factor that has contributed to your
uh,
vision, I would.
I would have never considered it, honestly. I would have never thought of going ahead on an acquisition. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was the destiny, I think. So that's what Allah had written for us, and that's Right now, I'm grateful that this happened, because obviously a lot of issues we would have faced, especially in fundraising, because
Mm,
fundraising was the difficult part in the whole thing,
yeah.
and
Mm,
being the female founders, being in Islamic
yeah.
finance, so it would have been a challenging thing for us.
Sounds good. Okay, great. So this is very inspirational, Dr. Areeba. And you
Mm.
touched upon your vision of, empowering not just the women in the financial industry with the Sharia compliant finance, but also, how Sharia compliant finance is more ethical compared to conventional finance. And you did your research in this while you were doing your PhD. So I would like to understand a little bit more about what makes you think Sharia compliant finance, which is the Islamic finance, it complies more with the ethical finance that we usually talk about.
It's definitely, a lot of industries use it as a different name, an alternative name to what Islamic finance is, because a lot of standards are similar to what ethical finance is. Well, ethical finance talks about ethics, following the ethics which are not harmful for the society. That's what Islamic finance also says, which is not harmful for the society. Islamic finance does have some concepts, does have some specific areas, like there is the concept of muraba contracts, mudarba contracts, ijara leasing, but these are all wrapped up into ethical ways of dealing in finance. That's why we use these words interchangeably, like faith based investments, ethical investments. And now I'm seeing a lot of companies using green finance also. It's all in one. It's the same thing,
Yeah,
honestly telling you. Yeah,
and impact investing as well.
exactly. Exactly.
I see. And riba is the core part of Islamic finance. And there are a lot of arguments which one is permitted, which one is not permitted. So I recently read an article about Riba as well. And it got me into a little bit of confusion that a certain type of riba that we usually see in the conventional banking, that is really like a structured sort of riba that we have in the conventional banking or in the conventional finance. The article says that is permitted under Islam. It's only the riba that is exploiting the people, the riba that is extreme level, that is not allowed. So you have done a PhD in Islamic finance, so obviously you will be in a much better position to be able to guide me and guide our audience whether this kind of thinking is correct or whether this is not correct.
I think that argument actually sounds intuitive at first, because people associate riba with exploitation. So
Mm,
basically, they assume if interest is not excessive, it must be acceptable. But
mm,
that's not the case in Islamic finance. The issue is not about how much interest you charge, it's about the concept itself. So
mm,
the prohibition of riba is not based on whether it is high or low, harmful or harmless, or in a specific situation. It's based on a broader principle that money should not generate money on its own without real economic activity and without risk sharing. Like even in the modern finance, where interest is structured and regulated, the core mechanism remains the same, right? You're earning a guaranteed return regardless of the outcome of the underlying economic activity. That's where
mm,
the disconnect lies from a Sharia
mm,
perspective. Also, the argument that modern interest doesn't harm society, that's actually quite debatable. If you look at
mm,
systematic issues like debt dependency,
mm.
inequality, and the financial crisis, so
Yeah.
interest-based system still contribute to those challenges. So Islamic
Mm,
finance is just reaching to extreme cases of usury. It's proposing a
mm,
fundamentally different model, one that ties return to real risk, real assets,
mm,
and shared outcome. That's where the key distinction comes in. And I also do hear a lot of arguments wherein people say that banks use profit rate interchangeably to interest rates. But that's not the case. I won't talk
mm.
much more on the banking system, because I'm more
Yeah.
on the investment side. But we do hear these kind of arguments. But the basic concept
Mm,
of riba, it's the same. There's
mm.
nothing like harmful or harmless riba. So
Yeah.
it's the same thing.
They also say, in the conventional banking system, when you're putting money into the bank and you're getting some interest back on that money, it is also used for economic activity because it is being lent out to different businesses for financing purposes. And they can use that money to invest in different activities of the business. And it kind of generates some sort of economic activity for the country.
So I think people need to understand that if it's an Islamic bank, so they make
Mm,
sure that wherever they are investing is Sharia compliant, because obviously they have a Sharia board sitting over there which certifies
mm,
things. It's
mm,
not in the case that they can invest anywhere they want. They have to make sure it stays Sharia compliant.
mm,
Obviously, there are regulations behind it. There are regulators sitting over there who make sure that things are done the way it's been written in the rule book. So
mm,
these are the few of the things which needs to be understood, that regulators won't let you just take the calls on your own. You have to make sure that if it says Sharia compliant, the processes are Sharia compliant. There's a Sharia
mm.
board which approves the products. There's a Sharia board
Yeah.
which approves where the investment is going. So
Mm.
there are a lot of people involved behind it.
I see. And actually, that leads me to my next question as well, which is about same product, different packaging. A lot of people would say that, Islamic finance products or Sharia compliant products nowadays, they're just following the same principles which are followed in the conventional banking system, but they are packaged in a different way. So they are really not following the principle based Sharia compliance mechanism that they are supposed to follow, but instead, they are just following the same conventional banking principle and then just packaging them in a different way. So how true is that? Or I mean, you have a deep knowledge in the industry and you have worked in the industry for a very long time. So perhaps you would know how much is that happening in the industry when it comes to Islamic finance?
So I'll tell you with regards to investments first, because I'm more
Mm,
into investments. You won't believe we follow a very strict methodology when we do the Sharia screening. It's not like if we are investing in Apple, we say it is Sharia compliant. We are saying just because it's a tech industry. We are just saying because it's a highly volatile stock or it's like giving us good returns. It's not the
mm,
case. We do a deep research on it. We review their annual reports. So we follow a methodology which is being obviously approved by Accounting Association of Islamic Financial Institutes, which is the governing body of Islamic financial institutes. And
mm,
there are various methodologies being given. The S&P has their own methodology, MSCI has their own methodology, and obviously AOP has their own methodology, which is a very strict methodology. You have to do
mm,
screening on the business side and then on the financial side as well. Once the company goes through that, there are a lot of companies which got obviously rejected because they do not fall under those categories, under those threshold limits. And we
mm,
cannot add them into portfolios which are Sharia compliant portfolios. So it's not the same packaging. Definitely not. And
mm,
I'm talking about the investment side, but on the loan side, because I've seen it recently and I've been studying about it a lot. So in loan, there's a thing called as Qard Hasan,
mm,
which is called as the benevolent loan. So
mhm,
I'll tell you the basic key distinction between the conventional loan and the Islamic loan. In
yeah,
conventional loan, you lend money, you earn interest, and return is guaranteed regardless of the outcome. This
mm,
is what we call riba, because return
mm,
is
yeah,
guaranteed regardless of outcome. In Islamic loan, you lend money, you get back exactly what you gave. There is no additional benefit tied to time. And this is
mm,
called as ethical, not commercial profit. And this is where
mm,
people get confused that if Islamic banks give financing, isn't
yeah,
that just a loan? No. Islamic finance avoid calling it a loan for profit. Instead, they
mm,
use a structure like murahaba, which is
mm,
cost plus profit, which is trade
yeah,
based. Then there is
mm,
ijara, which is a leasing based. Then there is
mm,
musharka or mudarba, which is partnership and profit sharing based. So
mm,
obviously, we have seen a lot of cases in the industry wherein investors or people who are like high net worth individuals, they think that there's nothing like loss sharing. They think it's
mm,
just profit sharing. They don't believe in the concept of loss sharing. And I have seen it personally as well, that they don't understand risk sharing. They just think
yeah.
it's profit and that's it. There's no other sharing. on the Islamic
Yeah.
side. But these are the things which people should understand, that if a
Mm.
company is facing a loss, you have to share that loss with the company. If company
Yeah.
is making profit, they'll give you the profit if they are Islamic. And you don't have to
Yeah.
worry about things because they follow a strict principle. And at the end of the day, you have to answer to Allah. That's it.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
can't be spreading that this is Islamic finance and then you figure about it and then you deal in a conventional way and sleep over it. No, you can't do it because at the end of the day
Yes.
you have to deal with Allah as well. What you
Yeah.
did you even follow the Islamic principles? If you didn't,
Mm.
then it's not Islamic finance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the Islamic mortgages, which is also like risk sharing compared to conventional mortgages, which are not risk sharing. So there is a lot of burden on the person who is getting the loan, getting the mortgage. But if you could correct me or verify me, Islamic mortgages are more like, you're sharing the risk with the bank. So when you are getting out that mortgage, bank has as much responsibility as you have for the property that you are buying.
Yeah, so for the same, I'll give you a distinction between what a conventional mortgage is and what an Islamic
Mm.
mortgage is. In conventional mortgage, it's a standard mortgage, a loan with interest where the bank earns money purely from lending. But from
Yeah.
a Sharia perspective, this falls under riba, regardless of
Mm.
how low or structured the interest is. But in the
Mm.
case of Islamic, there's this murhaba. So in Murhaba, the bank buys the property. Like if I go in, I ask for a loan or a mortgage for my house, the bank
Mm.
will buy the property. They will
Yeah.
sell me at a marked up price and we have to pay in
Mm.
installments.
Yeah.
So the profit is actually tied to a real asset, which is a house,
Mm.
not interest on a loan. Then we have the ijara, which is lease to own. Wherein bank buys the house, you rent it from the bank and gradually buy ownership over time. So the payments is basically rent plus ownership proportion, and
Mm.
risk is partially shared in this. Then
Yeah.
we have this musharka. You and the bank co-own the property. You pay
Yeah.
rent for the bank share plus
Mm.
buy out their share gradually over time.
Yeah.
And then obviously when you have the 100%, it's your own property, which
Yeah.
is closer to mortgage alternative. And this is built on partnership, not debt.
Of course. Thank you so much, Dr. Ariba, for providing us your opinion so far on all these critical points when it comes to Sharia compliant finance. Now, I would like to move our conversation a little bit towards Middle East because that's what I wanted to cover a little bit about in this podcast. So, tell us more about what is happening in the Middle East market in terms of ethical finance, Sharia compliant finance, as well as the traditional conventional banking that has always been there.
So the Middle East market is slowly moving towards promoting Islamic finance on a larger scale. Obviously, they had it since the beginning, but now slowly we are moving towards promoting it on a larger scale. And in fact, I would like to add Taqwa Invest was actually the first Sharia compliant regulated entity in the DFSA, born locally. And obviously, there are a lot of entities which are coming in now. We have Wahid also in the UAE. We have other entities also like Tabadulat, which recently got regulated by ADGM, which is also a Sharia entity. So slowly we are seeing a rise in Islamic finance, and slowly we are seeing a lot of entities are focusing on Islamic finance because people over here are realizing that it's better to invest in Sharia compliant products than going into conventional products because it's safer. And obviously, now it's like research backed, wherein we know that, okay, during crisis period, they tend to perform much, much better as compared to conventional. So there is a focus around the whole of the Middle East. We have provisions over here now wherein the government is supporting Islamic financial entities. There is a Dubai Islamic Bank which there is a Dar al Sharia. We have Abu Dhabi Islamic Bank. We have a lot of banks in UAE which are Islamic. And it's good to see that the mechanics behind it are also Islamic. And obviously,
Mm.
a lot of policies, they have a Sharia
Actually,
board, obviously. Yeah.
that's
And
what I wanted to ask as well for my next question, whether a lot of them are following the
yeah,
principles
obviously,
of Sharia finance.
yeah, as I've mentioned, there is a regulator sitting on top of their head.
Mm.
And they have a Sharia board and they have to
Mm.
comply with the guidelines. That's a very important thing. and no regulator allows you or gives you leniency when it comes to not following the guidelines. There are like huge fines if you don't follow it. So this
Yeah.
is something which is already there in place. And in fact, we ran Taqwa Invest. We had a regulator dealing with us. They had a
Mm,
Sharia department which used to make sure that we follow the AOFE guidelines. We follow these rules.
mm,
This is the guide number. This is the rule number. Are you following it? And if you're following it,
mm,
you need to provide a proof of it. You can't just say, yes, we are following it. You have to
mm,
provide a backing to it. Like, this is what
mm.
we do, this is the
Yeah.
methodology we follow. People do think that it's not the same case, but
Mm.
trust me, there are strict regulations behind it.
I see. That's really great. That's needed. I mean, that's the kind of infrastructure that Islamic or Sharia finance requires you to have. This question just came to my mind since you have been running your own business or your own startup and you have been following all those guidelines that are in place for Sharia compliant organization. So does it add a lot of cost to it? Is it like a burden for your organization, or do you think it's something that is kind of like risk that you're mitigating for your organization?
So it depends on the vision of the company. If the vision of the company is Sharia compliant only and to make sure that we promote this, then it's not a burden because
Mm,
obviously there are additional expenses which you have to follow. There are additional protocols which you have to follow. It's not pretty much simple as other types of finance. So you have to follow a particular protocol. You have to make sure you satisfy multiple levels of people, and from Sharia board to the regulator, everybody has to be satisfied with what you're doing because you are Sharia compliant. You tell the world that you're Sharia compliant. You can't just tell them and don't be Sharia compliant because people trust you. People trust what
mm,
you say, and if you don't do it, then it's not just your credibility which will be questioned. It will be the Sharia
yeah.
board's credibility. It will be the regulators' credibility. So a lot of people are involved over here, and alhamdulillah, we have like such good muftis out there who are part of the
Mm,
various Sharia boards, who are
mm,
understanding, who don't make it look like a burden on them or on us, and they
mm,
are very happy to contribute to make sure that your company is compliant, your company is following all the guidelines. And
mm,
honestly, whoever I've dealt with till date, all the Sharia scholars, they have been very nice and very supportive of the startup culture. Because obviously startups don't have like that much of funds in the beginning.
mm,
Already are running short of funds and they don't have a thing to pay to themselves. The Sharia scholars come in and they actually support this. They actually help us in a lot of
mm,
areas, and they actually help us from introductions to basically making sure that this does not become a burden on us. A Sharia board, obviously, it's not like a burden on any of the firm if the
okay.
mission and the vision is the same.
I see. That's great. And that's the kind of, I mean, Sharia compliant infrastructure that is in place and should be followed. And if you take the shortcuts down the line, it will come back to haunt you.
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
it will definitely come back to haunt you. So following the right approach, following the right rules and regulation, and putting up the infrastructure builds you for the long-term success, I guess. And that's what you were able to achieve. So now that you have done so much of this, and your company is already acquired by Standard Chartered. What is it for the future now, Dr. Areeba? What do you plan to do?
My mission is still the same, honestly.
Hmm.
And I want to make sure that the Sharia finance is promoted the way it should have been. And I had this thing in my mind that I want to change how people look at Islamic finance because obviously, when I was doing my PhD, I did get some negative feedback. And I want to change that perception because it's very important. And it's us only who can do that. It's us because we have the highest qualification. And now we know the industry. Who else can do
Yeah.
it than us? So that's the mission. And as I've mentioned to you earlier, also that I have been deputy chair of a global Sharia Asset Association committee, which is getting established in UAE. And this is a
Mm,
global association. And our vision and mission is to promote Sharia finance. And
mm,
we have good backing of various regulators, not just of UAE, but
mm,
Bahrain, Saudi, even UK. And now we are moving towards Singapore, Hong Kong, and the Southeast
mm.
Asia as well. And our
Yeah.
mission is definitely to do the same thing. and not
Mm,
to divert from what we were doing, because we are experts in this area. We should not divert from what
mm,
we plan to do, and that's what I've
yeah.
been saying. And I've been posting a lot on LinkedIn also about this, that my mission has not been diverted, and I still want to do the same thing. I still want to
Mm.
promote the concept of Islamic finance and tell people that this is much better than what conventional finance is.
Yeah, you did mention about the new organization that you are being part of. So I'm interested to know, how do you plan to do it? I mean, for us, especially here in the East Side, Hong Kong, we don't have much going on when it comes to Islamic finance. We have a couple of startups trying to focus on Islamic finance, but compared to US, UK, there's a huge infrastructure for Islamic finance that has developed, and that also pushed into the Middle East. And now the Middle East is also like a booming market when it comes to Islamic finance. But in Hong Kong, we don't have much going on. So, how do you plan to fulfill your vision and mission of global Sharia compliant asset management association and create awareness for the Sharia compliant finance?
So you won't believe that I was actually Sharia screening Hong Kong stocks day before yesterday. Actually, like, I have to give it to someone, and I was actually reviewing those Hong Kong stocks. And
Mm,
obviously, as part of Islamically and Zoya, I used to stock Hong Kong stocks quite often.
mm,
And we are actually in talks with the regulators in Hong Kong as well, because we see a potential over there.
mm,
And this global Sharia association's main motive is this only. It's a non-profit organization. So consider this, that we are doing whatever we can to promote this. Definitely, our plan is to promote this not just in the Middle East or maybe UK or US, because obviously these countries are already like well versed with
yeah.
Islamic finance. And
Mm,
the countries which are not yet well versed, we want to tap
yeah.
those countries, and
Mm,
who do not have that many Islamic financial institutes. Like obviously,
mm,
Australia is also one of them, which is the most
yeah.
interesting country on when we talk about
Yeah.
Islamic finance, because that's the place where most of the Islamic fintechs wants to go. And
Mm,
these are few of the countries which we are looking at. And then obviously we have Africa, which is another very interesting region to tap into, because there is a rise in Islamic finance. There is a rise in understanding Islam as a concept. And
mm.
we definitely want to tap to these countries and grow this association over there. So that's the plan as of now.
MashaAllah. Hopefully, you are able to spread the awareness of Sharia compliant finance throughout the world, especially here in the East Side, where the saturation is still very, very little. But once again, thank you so much, Dr. Areeba, for joining us for this podcast. I'm pretty sure our audience would be able to benefit a lot from all the insights that you were able to give us. It is also our first time, having a guest from the Middle East who has a PhD in Islamic finance. So definitely a lot of great opinions, a lot of great insights. We are very thankful to you for giving us this time and providing your opinions on these subjects. Thank you so much for listeners as well who have been tuning in with us and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed our episode, please hit a subscribe button and share our podcast with other people as well. And until our next episode, goodbye and thank you so much.